Alright, back in the garage again. Time to work on the SR20 some more. Been a little while since I made a video on the old SR here. Had a little minor setback. Got some ARP flywheel bolts, right? Went to go put the nice new surface, brand new looking flywheel on there. And not paying attention. It was Thanksgiving Day. I was in a rush, just kind of trying to get stuff done. I was on my way to go somewhere. I had a little bit of time before I had to leave, so I figured real quick, you know, I'll just impact those suckers till they get snug. And I don't know really what I was thinking, because as soon as it started ugga-dugging a little bit, I should have stopped. But I was like, oh, it's just like hugging the flywheel down there. Right? Because I just like the flywheel didn't slip down all the way. I just kind of like went on there and it was a little bit snug. So I was like, oh, it's just like pulling that down. And I wasn't paying attention at like how far the bolts were actually sticking out. And I destroyed it. I destroyed the crank. It's over there. I'm not going to bother digging it out to show you guys. But here are some of the bolts. So you can see I definitely went more on a couple of them than the other ones. Those ones I like just barely started to destroy. That one I kind of totally destroyed. But there's like one or two that look about like that. Fully destroyed. So I don't know what I did. You can see they are ARP. So I don't know what I did wrong, but I already got everything swapped back over on this bad boy. So it's got the crank. This is the low port. It's got now crank from my high port that's over there in shambles. There's the block. The head's like tucked under there, under that plastic. There's the pistons. It's in shambles. But yeah, so I just got some stuff I was working on getting this finished up, planing that down. It's not perfectly flat across, but it's close enough to where with the MLS gasket that I got, I think it'll be good. If I end up having issues, it's not too much work to pull the turbo off, pull the manifold off, and plane that down some more. What I really need to do is find somebody with like a nice big belt sander, so I can kind of just go to town on it. Because I don't know if I could have it milled now. It's already all wrapped and so awkward. I don't know, but that's further on down the line. Today what we're going to be working on is getting these shims at the right height. I already went ahead and did the whole exhaust side. I didn't record that. I was just kind of like getting the hang of it. And I was originally going to do something with a feeler gauge. That's why I have this side. The cam already in. But that may have worked, but the method that I went with is much more efficient, much more precise, so that's why I did that. Okay, so I've really been slacking on recording stuff. I'm really sorry about that for people that want to see everything that's going on. But honestly, I've just been way too excited to get everything done. I've been kind of just waiting in limbo for these stupid flywheel bolts to come in. And yeah, since they've gotten here, I've just been too excited to want to take the time to record stuff. But I'm in a good spot here, and I don't know, I felt like it was you guys deserve to see what's going on. So I'm gonna show you what's going on. So the motor's in the car for the last time. It's the actual motor that's going to be in here. I know I've never had this motor in here yet. It's good to see it in there. It's low port, nothing special. Low port, it's got the high port cam in there, the ACL bearings in the bottom end, and it's actually got the crank from my high port that's over there in shambles because of my own stupidness. LSD trans, still need to get a speed sensor, and once I figure out whatever speed sensor I'm getting, I need to figure out and find a cluster. But that and axles, and finish up what I'm working on here, intake, charge piping, and the upper coolant piping, and it's done. So I'm really close to being done, and it's pretty exciting, guys. But yeah, so here's what I've gotten done today. I got the transmission bracket modified. That's the 1.6 bracket. I had to extend it over there just to push it further back, and then since I have an upgraded pressure plate, I welded an additional brace on in the back, which goes over to the starter, one of the starter bolts, and basically will just prevent that from having any flex in it. So got that done. A little bit dark, but I have my lower radiator hose, the one that I picked up the other day. Fits perfectly for the lower portion. Working on the upper portion here. See, it's gonna come out. This is actually a 45 from a high port coolant setup or whatever you want to call it, I don't know. And I basically just need to finish off from here, get it to meet up with that, which I'll probably put at a little more of an angle out there. Also have to finish off this. I'm going to have the filter kind of over in this region. I'm going to be making this out of steel just because I don't have the time to try and bring it somewhere and have somebody make it out of aluminum, and I don't have the stuff to make it out of aluminum. I don't have a TIG welder, so we're just going to make it up out of some steel for now, and then if I want to, I could bring that to somebody and have them make it out of aluminum. So, and also for the charge piping, I'm going to do the same thing and make a small portion out of steel so that I don't have to bring it somewhere and have them make it out of aluminum. guys, so there it was. The SR20 started. Been a long time coming, but it finally started. It's in the car. It started. I have a lot of work to do to get it tuned right, get it to even idle correctly. The air-fuel ratio is off the charts right now. It's idling at like mid-8s, low-9s. Rich as ever could be. But it started. It ran smooth. I started it like 7 different times. A rod hasn't shot through the block yet, so I'm pretty sure all of my calculations when I was inside the motor came out good. I went by the books. I did everything meticulously as possible, so I didn't really have very many doubts as far as that was concerned, but there was a little part of me that was still pretty worried. I've never really rebuilt the motor to that extent before. Done a head gasket, that's about it. Like I said, it's idling really rich. I believe it has to do with the injectors. I'm pretty sure I have some eBay. They're like the 550cc Subaru injectors that are like the same side feed that a lot of people use in here. But I'm pretty sure they're not like legitimate Jex injectors. I think they're like eBay ones. So I'm starting to believe that it has to do with like the latency times or whatever. I have to look into that more. I'm not good with that stuff yet. But I believe that's what it has to do with, because it's basically idling at just as rich as it would when I would ever try to use these with the GA motor. Like 9s, you know what I mean? It's actually idling a little bit more rich in this motor than it was in the GA. The GA, it used to idle like around 10. Now in this motor it's like 9, which I would imagine with it being the SR20 bigger displacement motor, I would think it would be better with the inject, but it's running about the same. It's really rich. I gotta look at the tune. We'll see what goes on there, but I'm pretty ecstatic. The motor started. Let's do a full recap and basically just go over everything here. So the turbo is a Garrett. It's a real Garrett. Didn't want to go with the eBay piece. I almost did for a while there, but I went with a real Garrett. It's a T3 TO4E, like a 57mm, I'm pretty sure. I have down there, it's a tile wastegate, real tile. Again, almost went with like some eBay stuff. Chose not to. Wanted to do a more legitimate setup this time around. So it's an old school tile, but it's a real tile. Running off the wastegate spring right now, just 10 pounds. I do have an eBay intercooler though. Imusa. I don't know the sizes, but it's like 3-inch inlet outlet. So I have a step down, like 3-inch 2.5 90, and then 3-inch 2.5 straight on that piece. You can kind of see how I have the intercooler piping ran. Hot side, cold side. Goes up under the blinker. Since I don't have radiator support, that's another thing I chopped out completely. It goes up under the blinker / headlight and kind of comes through here. Blow off valve, it's a Forge like 007 valve. Those are actually for Volkswagens. They come, a lot of people use them on the 1.8s or whatever. I got it from Buddy, it worked out good. And up to there. I don't have the idle air control valve hooked up right now. So it's kind of just, I have the idle going through the throttle cable. Going back to how I mentioned that I have the radiator support delete or whatever. This is the bar that kind of supports the intercooler. Headlight supports come up off of that also. And here, this little wrench thing, that's actually the mount for my grill. So actually here, I'll go and throw the grill in real quick so you guys can see what it's going to look like with the grill in there. It's basically what it's going to look like with the grill in there. It's a little bit crooked, I think, right now, but you can get the point. 3-inch, well, it's this like, these turbos have this weird like 5-bolt flange on the back. It's like a 2.5 outlet or 2 3/4 or something like that. So I have that going up to my 3-inch downpipe that comes up and dumps right out the fender there. Or actually, it's going to be out the bumper. Finally got my line in here for my oil feed. That should be all good to go. I actually have, you won't really be able to see it because of the light. Hold on here. There you can kind of see that oil drain is actually, I made it. It's just like a piece of 5/8 pipe or whatever that I had lying around, and like a piece of flat steel stock. Didn't feel like spending the 40 bucks on an oil drain, so figured I'd make one, save me some money, and it works out just fine. Also, you can't see it, but I don't know, block is tapped, and the normal, typical SR20 spot down there. That's in some previous videos. Oil catch can set up here, just got that in the other day, just a little cheap little eBay setup. I don't know, it's gonna do the job for now. You can kind of see I got some wiring tucked down in there. I wrapped it with some header wrap just because I have it kind of tucked up towards the block there. I tried to do as good of a job as I could tucking the wires on this car. It's definitely a little bit more in depth than the GA harness, but I feel like I did a pretty good job. Basically this area over here by the transmission is the only area that's really visible with wires. That one that has the red on right there, that's a big ground wire for the starter. I have the battery back there, as you can see. No battery up front. Reused the stock coolant reservoir. Z32 MAF. Recirculating blow-off valve, as I mentioned earlier. Cheap eBay intercooler, not intercooler. I do have a cheap eBay intercooler, but that's a cheap eBay radiator, just for a Honda, whatever. Pretty typical. I think a lot of guys run that. What else? I actually have a pretty cheap Rock Auto ignition coil right now because I have a OEM Nissan ignition coil, but honestly, this might be, you know, being a little bit picky here, but it was just dirty looking and kind of rusty a little bit on like the outer it was just a little bit like rusty here on the outer pieces of metal, a little bit down there, and the label's worn off. But yeah, up here you can see it's rusty and starting to the layers are starting to separate a little bit. But other than that, I feel like this ignition coil is probably perfectly fine. But I have a very cheap little eBay ignition coil on there. But I know quality does matter with these things, so I'm definitely keeping this around for later in case that one gives me issues, or I don't know. You can see in there a little bit of the yellow. Those are the 550cc. There's Subaru injectors, side feed, whatever. They were the eBay ones I mentioned earlier. Not sure if those would have given me my issues with running rich right now, but we're gonna look into it. Fuel pressure regulator. Again, eBay piece. I don't think this is my issue right now because it worked fine all throughout the GA. And yeah, I just don't really think that's what's giving my issue right now, but that's the fuel pressure regulator we got. Back here, you can see a little bit of the fuel lines. I have the adapter piece coming out of the block, or the fuel rail. Hold on. Alright, back here for the fuel lines coming out of the fuel pressure regulator and the fuel rail, you can see I have the adapter piece. That's what that blue piece is there. Coming up to the fuel pressure regulator and going down to my fuel lines. For those of you that don't know, I have my fuel lines ran through the interior of my car. Normally they would be on that side of the car, but I have them ran through the interior along the passenger side. So that's why I have my fuel lines all over here. Also, this is actually a high port DE fuel rail. I cut the tabs off, flipped it upside down, and welded my own tabs on, and that's why it's able to be both on this side. And it's also, like I said, it's a high port fuel rail on the low port. So I figured I'd point that out. Also, this is, as you can see, a low port SR20. I'm using it with a high port OBD1 SR20 engine harness. That's why you actually can't really see it, but there's a OBD1 coolant temperature sensor in there. The plugs are different, so I had to run the OBD1 coolant temperature sensor plug. This is a OBD1 throttle body. The OBD1 or OBD2 style have two separate plugs on them. The distributor is a OBD1 style. The OBD2 style does not have a coil pack. They have it like built into this or something like that. I don't know. I know they don't have a coil pack though. So yeah, that's why it's a low port, but I'm not running it as OBD2 style as low ports normally are. I'm running it full OBD1 status. What a lot of people would do is get the step down harness and just plug that into their OBD2 harness on these and then run the OBD1 ECU so they could tune it and whatnot. But in my case, I figured since I had all the workings of the OBD1 SR20 from the high port that I got, I figured I might as well go ahead and just run this as the OBD1 motor instead of converting, you know, getting an OBD harness, running all the OBD2 components on this. I figured it was easier and I'd be better off just running it as the OBD1, which worked. So yeah. Right now I don't have the upper radiator hose connected, but it's just because I'm basically just messing around with it in the garage, getting it trying to get it to idle right, messing with the tune. I got the alternator connected. I wasn't sure if I was going to use it because it the pulley has a little bit of this action on it. Not a whole lot, but it does a little weebly wobbly. That was not a really good demonstration, but I wasn't sure if I was going to use that alternator, but it worked out. Checks out on the laptop, and then this tune, the voltages are at 14 point whatever, so it's charging. So I'm gonna go ahead and send it with that alternator. I picked up the other day, since I will not be using power steering on this setup, I had to pick up a really short belt to run my water pump, because what I was gonna do is, when I first got this low port, it was set up to be ran without power steering, but the dude, whoever had it like that, flipped the water pump pulley inside out and then used one belt to run the alternator and the water pump, thus using the alternator as like the tensioner basically. I was gonna do that until I looked into it and found that that's not really the greatest idea. So what people do is use this little guy. This is really small. This belt is the tiniest thing I've ever seen that goes on a car, and it's just weird. But basically this has to somehow go around the crank pulley and the water pump pulley, and there's going to be no tensioner. It's just small enough that it has the perfect tension once it's on there, and you have to fight it to get it on, and hopefully I don't destroy it trying to get it on there. Apparently it's been done plenty of times before, so yeah, I guess I'll be good. So what is next? What have I not mentioned? So, diving inside the car now. The interior is fully done in some of my previous videos if you want to go back. Dashboard was out. Everything on from basically here up was out. Aside, well, the dashboard was out. I had all the wiring apart. I guess everything wasn't taken out, but the dashboard was out. All the wiring was messed with. I have swapped my cluster now. This is the B14. This is actually from a GA16 limited edition. So, I don't know. I'm pretty sure the fuel gauge is working now, because when I first got this thing, it was like around half tank, and now since I've started the car, it's gone down, and I feel like that's fairly accurate to where I'm guessing my fuel level is. So that's cool. Speedometer, I believe, is working because I think my tune is working properly, and I tested the speedometer with a drill, like hooked up to the speed sensor, so I'm 99% sure the speedometer is working properly. The tachometer is not working properly. It's not registering at all, but it's just I must not have a wire, either the signal wire or the ground isn't hooked up properly, because in the laptop it's working, displaying correctly on this tune. So that should be an easy fix. Not worried about that. Oil pressure was looking good. Vacuum was reading okay. It was down around the 20, so getting good vacuum. This, like I said, was around 8.5, 9, very rich. Also, this is my new gauge setup, new boost gauge, Turbo Smart. I used to have a nice, it wasn't nice actually. It was in eBay. It was like $7 for the boost gauge. Didn't like it. This looks way better. Still using my AEM that I traded my moped for. The people that are still asking about the moped and commenting on that video, this is that moped. This is the gauge. I traded the moped for this gauge. I don't have the moped. I'm sorry. And then I put a new oil gauge in there too. I had just another cheap mechanical oil pressure gauge like this one, but this one's black. The other one had a silver bezel. This one just looks a little bit better, so I'm using this one. Switch panel. Here are all the switches. Here's my fuel pump. Fuel pump works. The light works, so I don't forget to turn the fuel pump off. I've forgotten to turn the fuel pump on a few times already, but I have not forgotten to turn the fuel pump off. So that works. Here's the one for the fan up front. These two are mislabeled. This one is supposed to run the AEM air fuel, and it turns on the gauges. This one down here is supposed to run the gauges, which ACC accessory, you know, and it turns on the wideband. Whoops. And this one is the heater blower motor. Works mint. I'm pretty sure I've shown this in multiple videos before, but I do have a very short shifter in this guy. That's a gear. That's another gear. The throw backwards is a lot longer. Don't know why. Glove box mounted ECU. You can see the chip that I have going on in there. There it is. Motes. You can see there's the company name down there. Not going to focus at all on that ever. But motes.net, moates.net. That's where you can get that chipboard. Get a lot of questions about that sometimes, maybe. So, yeah. And it's the Nissan dual chipboard. It's for the OBD1. They make ones for OBD2. They have a lot of different options for different things. Check them out. It's affordable. Go ahead. Wire for my wideband, hook up to the computer. I just have it kind of serial bit cable coming out the dash there, or whatever that cable is called. And then I relocated my console port so that it was just more easily accessible for me. I knew I'm going to be running the laptop a lot in this car. I didn't want to have a cable kind of drooped across my legs or across the dashboard to hook up the computer, so I just chopped the console cable or plug off of over here and tapped into the wires right off the ECU, so it was just much more easily accessible for me to hook up my laptop to. So yeah, I think that's about that for the interior. Oh, and I guess I didn't show this yet. The lights do work for that. Oh, I could do that. I could plug the highlight, or the the high beam indicator works. Where are my keys? Turn that on there. Servage engine light, I have that hooked up. That works. And right blinker works. Left blinker works. Like I said, high beams, there's low beams. Everything works except for the freaking tachometer. So, yeah, B14 cluster swap was a success. Alright, so that's going to be the end of this video. The SR20 swap is done, basically. It started at least. It's definitely still got some work to do. Working on the tune, getting things dialed in. I still got these brakes I got to put on. 8022 VF NX 2000 brakes. Nothing crazy, not dual piston or whatever in the calipers, but much larger than the stock brakes that we got on here now for the front. So still got those to install, haven't gotten to that. Definitely just got some more stuff to be worked on this thing, so definitely stay tuned. Definitely excited that this thing finally got started. I hope all you guys are a little bit excited for me too, because I definitely am. But yeah, like I said, stay tuned. Just stay tuned. I don't know what else to say. I'm too excited to even think about words right now. I'll see you guys next time. Subscribe.